Science of concepts. No one understood concept until you watch this video. Why science of concepts? First of all, rationale. What is rationale? It is an objective definition of concept only in science. Describe, define each concept equally and fairly for everyone and all beliefs of the concept. So it's about purpose of each concept, describe and define. Second, it's human right. It's fundamental human right of each concept that is described, defined equally and fairly for everyone and all beliefs. This is scientific definition of human right. What is human right? Everything that is described, defined equally and fairly for everyone and all beliefs. On the other hand, a concept that is described, defined for one belief is not human right because it's not for everyone and all beliefs. So that's why it's human right. Now, the consequence without science of concept, what happened without science of concept? That's what we have currently. All concepts described, defined subjectively for one belief in the name of all beliefs. Every concept right now is defined and described for one belief because it's all subjectively defined for every single concept. And that is violation of human right for every single concept that is not defined, described for everyone and all beliefs. What's concept? Well, the real question is what is concept defined, described objectively? It's all about objective concept. That is described, defined equally and fairly for everyone and all beliefs. Okay, so again, there are 4 key steps to understand what is concept objectively. The first step, scientific requirements, objective requirements for what is concept. Second, objective definition of concept that capture all the requirements for a concept to be objective concept. Third step, translate requirement for objective concept into a model of concept to capture all the requirements by a model of concept. Lastly, you have to have a scientific standard for testing and validating a model of concept to see if it meets scientific requirement for that model to be concept that is for everyone and all belief. Otherwise, if a failure to meet the requirements, it's not concept defined, described for everyone and all beliefs. Now, requirements. Well, science of concept is the only way to define and describe a concept equally and fairly for everyone and all beliefs. So, what are the key requirements? Objective requirements. The most important one, again, is the purpose of concept, right? So you define or describe a concept that is equal and fair for everyone and all beliefs. This is very important. Second, objective scope, that is, every single concept that describes interaction of humans must be in scope for science of concepts. Quantitative method. A quantitative method or quantitative description of every single concept is required. Otherwise, it's not objective. Lastly, you have to have scientific standard for each concept. That is a standard to determine what is objective and non-political concept by the objective requirements for all beliefs. Now let's look at Western definitions of concept. Again, from Google AI and Wikipedia. It's very simple, but it's very subjective definition of a concept. It doesn't tell you what's the purpose and doesn't tell you what is in scope. It doesn't tell you what's the method. Is quantitative method or qualitative method. Lastly, it doesn't tell you you need a standard to determine a concept is for everyone and all beliefs or a concept for just one belief. Now, we present here an objective definition of concept. Again, objective definition of concept is not to define a concept subjectively. Rather, it defines the requirements and standard to meet for a concept that is for everyone and all beliefs. So what we have here is quantitative description of concept that is equal and fair for everyone and all beliefs of concept tested and validated by scientific standard for concept. It's very short, but they capture all the requirements. It's very important. The next step, translate requirements, objective definition into scientific definition as a model. Basically, develop a model to capture all the requirements for a concept. So the first requirement, we have a model or purpose of concept. And two requirements, basically, one is all beliefs, one is equality and fairness. And combine those two, we have a model of political neutral coexistence of all beliefs of concept. Now, in most of the cases, almost all the cases, right, every single concept, political belief of concept different from a different political belief, typically it's two opposing beliefs. One is an individual belief, individualist belief, and collectivist belief of a concept. They're opposed to each other, and that's why we need to have a model of a politically neutral coexistence of those two opposing beliefs of concept. Individualist belief and collectivist belief of a concept. Now, move to next step, scientific definition. It's a scientific language of models to capture all the requirements. So what we have is, for any concept, right, we define a concept for all beliefs. It's like testing a new drug. You have two environments. One is test environment, capture real drug. One is control environment, capture dummy drug. Same thing here. Concept for all belief is real one. the multipolar concept that is a politically neutral coexistence of all beliefs of concept. In control environment, we have a concept for one belief, defined as unipolar concept is a political coexistence of all beliefs of a concept. Thirdly, they have to be quantified for any objective description. So we have Peace rule to calculate coexistence relationships between opposing political beliefs of a concept based on the outcome and the scientific standard to determine whether that relationship is multipolar concept or unipolar concept. Now, model output for any model of a concept. We have scientific standard for concept that divide all the outputs of a model of concept into 4 buckets. 2 buckets for test environment, which is for multipolar concept. 1 bucket is zero tolerance of one belief. Second one is non-zero risk tolerance of one belief. Third bucket in control environment that captures unipolar concept that has risk tolerance of all beliefs. Then number 4 bucket captures maximum unipolar concept. Basically, it's a zero risk tolerance of all beliefs. Use that in testing and validation of any model of concept to determine the characteristic of the model of concept, right? Basically, it's analyze, calculate output of a model of concept. See which bucket capture the output of model of concept, whether it's first bucket for maximum multipolar concept with 100% confidence of concept for all beliefs, or multipolar concept with less than 100% confidence, or it's a unipolar concept for one belief with less than 100% confidence, or maximum unipolar concept for one belief with 100% confidence. Summary. We present objective definition for concept for the first time. Every definition for every single concept out there you find from dictionary in the West is subjective definition of that concept, no matter what the concept is. We have here objective definition of every single concept generically, right? Basically, it specifies all the requirements, purpose, scope, and method. And then quantitative standard for objective concept for everyone and all beliefs. And that is also first time presented. That standard is political independence for concept equal and fair, defined for everyone and all beliefs. Third, for first time, we present a concept, basically every single concept that is described, defined for all beliefs. There is no existing concept that meets all the requirements and standard described here for concept for all beliefs from any dictionary or any encyclopedia. Lastly, we argue concept that is defined equally and fairly for everyone and all beliefs is fundamental human right and freedom of speech for everyone and all beliefs. Thank you.